Have you ever stopped and wondered how a massive, multi-ton steel shaft, like the kind inside a power plant turbine or a giant ship engine, can spin for decades without just grinding itself into a pile of dust? Well, the answer is this absolutely beautiful and kind of invisible piece of physics.
The core problem here is friction, right? You've got tons of metal pressing down, trying to rotate against other metal. The forces are just immense. So how on earth do you defeat that? Well, the solution isn't just about making things slippery. It's about making them fly.
That's right. They literally surf. That heavy steel shaft doesn't actually touch its housing when it's running at speed. It is levitated, floating on a paper-thin, super high-pressure wave of oil. This is the story of how that incredible little wave gets created.
Okay, so to really appreciate the solution, we've got to start with the problem. And that story begins in the moments before anything even starts to move.
So, when the machine is switched off, gravity just wins. The inner part that rotates, that's called the journal, is sitting directly on the outer stationary part, the bearing. All that weight is focused on this tiny point of contact. Yeah, there's oil in there, but it's been squeezed out from between the two surfaces.
You see, no metal surface is perfectly smooth. If you looked at it under a microscope, it's a whole landscape of tiny mountains and valleys. We call those little peaks asperities. And in this state, called boundary lubrication, the entire load is resting on just the tips of these mountains grinding against each other. This is, without a doubt, the single most damaging phase in a machine's entire life.
So, to fight this, engineers have a trick up their sleeve, a first line of defense. The oil is packed with these special additives. One of the most famous is called ZDDP. Don't worry about the full name. Under the intense pressure and heat of startup, it actually reacts with the metal to form this super thin, sacrificial layer. It's literally designed to get worn away instead of the steel itself. Pretty clever, huh? So that sacrificial layer gets us through those first crucial moments. But we've got to get from grinding to floating. So let's see how that journey happens. Now, as the shaft first starts to turn, something really weird happens. Because the friction is so high, it doesn't just spin in place. It actually tries to roll up the side of the bearing. It climbs the wall, fighting to break free from that static friction.
As it picks up a little speed, the shaft starts to drag oil along with it. This creates these small pockets of fluid pressure that begin to push the surfaces apart. We've now entered what's called the mixed lubrication phase. Part of the load is still on the metal peaks, but now the oil is starting to help out. And this is when you see the friction just start to plummet.
And this is where the magic really happens. We fought our way through the initial grind, and now we are ready for liftoff.
This lays it out perfectly. As the shaft spins faster and faster, its own rotation acts like a pump. It's constantly dragging oil into this wedge-shaped gap between it and the bearing. Now, because that gap gets narrower, the oil has nowhere to go. It gets squeezed and the pressure just skyrockets until it's strong enough to lift the entire weight of the shaft. It floats.
And here it is. You can see it right here. This diagram shows exactly what's going on. That dotted line, the oil pressure distribution, that is the wave the shaft is surfing on. And notice how the pressure peaks just before the narrowest point? That's what creates this powerful lifting force that shoves the journal up and away from the wall.
This perfect state of floating has a name: hydrodynamic lubrication. Hydro for fluid, and dynamic for motion. The motion creates the pressure. And at this point, there is zero metal-on-metal contact. As long as that shaft keeps spinning and the oil stays clean, wear just stops. The machine could basically run forever.
So we've just followed this whole journey from a dead stop all the way to full speed. And believe me, engineers have this whole process mapped out. This slide just puts it all into perspective. Look at the difference. We start with high friction, high wear, and metal grinding on metal. But by just using the physics of fluid dynamics, we end up in a state with incredibly low friction, pretty much zero wear, and complete separation. It is a total transformation.
And this whole journey is famously described by something called the Strebeck curve. It's a graph that basically plots friction against speed. And it shows these three phases perfectly: the rough, high-friction boundary regime at startup, the transitional mixed regime as we speed up, and finally that smooth, low-friction hydrodynamic regime once we're up and cruising.
Okay, so this is all fascinating physics, for sure. But how does it connect to something you might actually see every day? Well, the one key property that makes all of this work is called viscosity. It's just a fluid's resistance to flow. Think about the difference between pouring water and pouring honey. Honey has a higher viscosity.
It's that thickness of the oil that lets it resist being squeezed out and allows it to build up that powerful load-bearing pressure. Without the right viscosity, this whole trick just falls apart.
And here it is. This is the payoff. You've seen 5W30 on a bottle of engine oil, right? Well, those numbers are all about viscosity. A 5W30 oil is engineered to be thin enough when it's cold, that's the 5W for winter, so it can flow quickly and protect the engine during that dangerous startup phase. But it's also thick enough at high temperatures, that's the 30, to maintain that strong hydrodynamic film when your engine is working hard. It's an oil that's designed to master that entire Strybeck curve.
So from the engine in your car to the world's biggest power plants, this elegant principle is humming away. It's a piece of engineering that replaces a destructive, grinding force with the physics of flight, and it quietly lets our modern world keep on spinning. It really makes you wonder, what other incredible invisible engineering is hiding all around us in plain sight?